Hello everyone, it's Myung-Kul. Today I am going to read Essay 6101, The Midwife's Apprentice, Chapter 6, 7, The Devil. If the world was sweet and fair, Alice and Will would become friends and the village applaud her for her bravery and the midwife be more generous with her cheese and onions. Since this is not so, and the world is just as it is and no more, nothing changed. Most of the villagers still paid no attention to Alice at all. Some women, like Gromit Smith, near as big as a dozen Alices, would sit on top of the girl so Jack and Rat could rub chicken manure into her hair, while the miller, who pinched her rump when she brought grain to the mill to be ground, and some more kind, or nearly so, like the baker's wife, who always asked Alice how she fared on this fine day, and the red-headed Will, who threw fewer stones at her since the saving of him, and sometimes stopped taunting altogether, saying, this wet grows boresome. Dick's granny is hanging out the wash. Let's go tie the knots in his breeches. And that's the way it was until the day the devil walked about. It started with the two-headed calf born to Roger Mustard's cow, Molly. Then a magpie landed on the miller's barn and wouldn't be chased away. Suddenly the whole village saw witches and devils everywhere, and fear lived in every cottage. Alice, who had slept alone outside in the dark for most of her years, even at fearful times like All Hallows Eve and Wall Purgis Night, had never yet seen the devil, and had nothing to fear from the night. It was she, then, who was sent to fetch and carry and deliver messages after dark, while the villagers stayed in their smoky cottages. So it was that she saw much of what went on in the village, and how people lived their lives and spent their time. It was so quiet for a few days, with all the villagers inside an idol, that Alice even had a little time to herself to wonder and think and plan, to watch and warn from old Gilbert Greyhead about the carving and polishing of wood, and to ask questions of the priest about sin and evil and the devil, humming to herself all the while. Then one damp autumn morning, Robert Weaver found a strange footprint which wound about the village and stopped suddenly at the door of the church. He called Thomas at the bridge, who knew the ways of the woods and the tracks of the animals, to help him discover what sort of beast had been prowling about while they slept. Would it a weasel, Thomas? No, that's a hoof. A weasel has toes. A goat, Thomas? No, those prints are much too big for a goat. A pig? No pig has dew claws like that. A boar, Thomas? With that delicate arch? Never a boar, Robert. What then, Thomas? What has hooves, is larger than a goat, and more delicate than a boar, but walks our village by night, but stops outside the door of the church. By dinner time, all the village was talking of the strange animal that even Thomas at the bridge could not identify. It only took a few incautious words and fearful whispers to convince them that the devil had found the village and was looking for souls to lead into sin. The next day, the strange, delicate hoof prints were found walking round the Dick's granny's cottage, and through the barley field, Robert and Thomas and the priest, whispering the Patana stars, followed the prince all the way to the mill, where, crossing themselves, they unlatched the door. The startled miller looked up, caught in the act of putting some of the granny's grain into his own sacks. The devil has indeed been here, cried the priest, and he has tempted our miller into theft. But let us deal with this thief mercifully, for which of us could withstand the devil? The villagers agreed, and so the miller, who had listened to the devil, did not have his hand chopped off, but only stood one day in the rain with his millstone tied about his neck. The next day all was quiet, and it was hoped that the devil had moved on to tempt another village. But as they passed into evening, Kate the weaver's daughter ran to the priest with a tale of seeing the devil's prince leading to Walter Smith's barn. The priest and a brave band of villagers armed with rakes and pitchforks and stakes tied into the crosses hurried to the barn. The priest sprinkled the door with holy water and threw it open. There cuddled in the hammock the grommet, the smith's large daughter, and the pockmarked pig boy from the manor. The boy gathered his breeches and flung himself out the barn window. The grommet, being larger, moved slowly and was caught. For listening to the devil, Grommet was made to spend the night in prayer and fasting. She wept. Though for loss of pride or loss of supper, none could say. As the villagers sat down to the dinners the next day, the wet with the runny rose hurried down the road, calling, "I've seen him, a hairy demon with horns and claws, and a great thrashing tail. He's on the road to the manor, looking for souls to take to hell." Fully half the villagers ran away from the manor road, but the other half ran toward it, making sure the priest and the holy water preceded them. There was no sign of the devil on the manor road or in the woods on either side. Finally, the villagers started home. There, near Raja Mustard's cottage, was the devil's prince, marching down the road, past Dick's granny's cottage, around Walter Smith's barn, and up to the door of William the Reeves' cottage. Again, the villagers flung open the door, and again found the devil had been at work, for there was wet finishing off William Reeves' leg of mutton dinner. The priest decided that the wet's gluttony and deceit were the fault of the devil, and not of the boy, so Wet's face was not branded, but William Reeves' bad-tempered pigs were in his care from that day on. The next morning it was a larger group of villagers who followed the hoof prints to the woods, where the broken-toothed Jack and his friends were clearing brush from Roger Mustard's field. Likely the devil had tricked the boys into laziness, for they were found asleep and given a sound beating. 2 days went by with no sign of the devil. The villagers grew calmer, thinking themselves fortunate not to have been tempted by the devil, then found out in so public a fashion. Then on a misty morning the devil walked the village again. By this time no one expected to catch him, but they were eager to see whom they would find in what sin. So all the village followed the prince, except for the midwife, who was called to the manor at the last minute, and Alice, who was elsewhere. The parade of villagers laughed and gossiped out of the village and along the old north road. As they followed the prince through a field, they grew quiet. The prince stopped near a large tree. So did the villagers. From behind the tree came the call, "Is that you, Jane, my doll?" And out leaped the baker, holding a bunch of Michaelmas daisies and a basket of bread before him. All was quiet. The baker's wife stepped forward and took the flowers as the villagers turned and walked away, leaving her to sort out what was the devil's work and what the baker's. After the departing, the villagers passed the river at a spot where the water ran swift and deep. Alice stepped out of the woods. She took something from under her skirt, threw it into the river, and followed the crowd home. So it was that all who had taunted or tormented Alice were punished for their secret sin. After this, the devil was never seen in the village again, and no one but Alice knew why. Several days later, in a village where the river meets the sea, there washed up on the banks 2 blocks of wood carved in the shape of the hooves of some unknown beast. No one could figure what they were or where they had come from. So eventually Annie the Broadbeam threw them into her cooking fire and enjoyed a hot rabbit stew on a cool autumn night. Chapter 8. The Twins. There being few babies born that September, Alice and the midwife spent the days making soap and brewing cider and wine. The first occupation stank up the air for miles around. What with goose, grease and mutton fat boiling away in the kettle, so that Raja Mustard in the manor fields, and the miller, at his wheel near the river, sniffed the air and said, "Someone be making soap today." Second task would lay perfume on the air and gladden noses near and far. Alice was greatly relieved when enough soap was made to wash all the linen in England and brewing could begin. First they cooked the parsnips with sugar and spices and yeast and poured this into casks, where the fermenting mixture sang loud and sweet as it turned into wine. And the same they did with the turnips. Then Alice, with basket tied to each end of a pole, walked with the cat to the abbey gardens to gather fallen fruit. They lying on the ground as if scattered by God just for Alice were apples, red and yellow, large and small, sweet and tart, firm and juicy. She tried a few, but unable to say whether she liked best the crisp, white-fleshed packages, the small, sour foxwell, while the mellow, sweet, rusty coat, and ruby stripes. She tried a few more. The cat, not finding that apples were good to eat, batted the small ones across the yard, imagining they had ears and tails and other parts that made things worth chasing. Returning to the village late in the day, with her baskets and belly full of apples, Alice cut through the manor field near where the villagers had dug a pit for the quarrying of gravel. From inside the pit came the cries of some fearsome thing, a beast, or a witch or a demon, so she crossed herself and hurried her step. The demon was calling, "Come here to me." To me, Alice ran fast. They stopped. The demon sounded mighty like Will, the boy with red hair who used to torment her and now did not so much. "Are you demon or red-headed louse?" she called. "Alice, be that you?" came the response from the pit. Cautiously she crept to the edge and looked over. It was red-headed loud, and with him his cow. "Alice, you must help me. Tansy has fallen into the pit and I can't get her to climb out, for she is about to have her calf and will not move. Come and help me." "I'm no midwife for cows, Will Russet," she called. "She needs your help, Alice, and so do I." "Indeed, I'm no midwife at all, Will Russet, and I do not know what to do. Come over and I will tell you. This is Tansy's first calf, but not mine." At that Tansy called out, low and mournful and full of pain and fright. Alice could not bear to leave her like that, so she put down her basket of apples and slid into the pit. Will grinned at her. "Good for you, Alice. Here, hold her head. Keep her quiet. Sing something soft." "I do not know any singing, Will Russet. To croon a song without words, then just make sweet noises." So Alice did, although none would have called them sweet but she and the boy and the cow. And perhaps the cat, who lay above where Alice had left him, carefully licking the soft pink pads of his feet. "Hold her, Alice. Rub her head and belly, if we can but calm her. God will tell her and the calf what to do." Alice sang and rubbed, calling the cow sweetheart and good old girl as she heard will do, and the boy pushed and pulled and worked as hard as the cow. Several times they near gave up, but Alice always found one more song, one more rub inside her. And Will loved Tansy like she was his babe, not his cow, and so the tired pair kept on. Finally, as they darkened into evening, there came the feet of a calf, then more feet, and more. "Twins, Alice," cried Will. "You have brought me great luck, for Tansy be having twins." So she was, and soon two slippery, shiny, brand new calves were lying in the dirt of the pit. Tansy was licking and nuzzling them gently. Once Alice and Will took the calves upon their shoulders and scrambled from the pit, so too did Tansy, not willing to stay alone in that hard, dark, and calfless place. Like a holy procession, they returned to the village, the boy and the girl, and the newborn twins and the cow and the cat. Was so happy with twice the bounty he expected from Tansy, made sure to tell everyone of his luck and of the great help Alice had been to him, and Alice felt the skin the prickling with delight, although she got in a muck of trouble for being so long about apple gathering, and then losing the basket as well as the fruit, for in the excitement of the twin calf, they were forgotten and left behind and never seen again. As September turned to October, and October to November, through all those days, Alice grew in knowledge and skill. Midwife, busy with her own importance, did not notice. Alice, grown accustomed to herself, did not notice, but the villagers noticed. And as October turned to November, and the ghost walked on All Hallows Eve, they began to ask her how and why and what can I. Sometimes for her help, advice, someone would pay her a ribbon or an egg or a loaf of cheese or bread, which she always gave to the midwife, as if Alice herself was just the midwife's hand or arm, doing the work and receiving the pay but taking no credit for the task. One morning, as they sat under the old oak tree, eating their breakfast bread, Alice told the cat again about the birth of Tansy's twin. How shiny they were and sticky to touch. I did not even know them, but I loved them so much. It sounded to her like a song. So she made singing sound as she had that day in the gravel pit, and then sang her words to the tune. All shiny they were, and sticky to touch. I did not even know them, but I loved them so much. And so it was that Alice learned about singing and making song. Her song brightened the cold gray day, so that a cowbird thought it was a spring and began to sing in the old oak tree. The end.